Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam as always. Sam, how you doing?
I am great. Hello, Mike. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode from the official podcast of the Bahamian national basketball team. We've got fun stuff to talk about here. It's late August, but things are ramping up. Things are ramping up, and a great guest who everyone can probably see in the episode description, so I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but yes, we did talk to Tom Leander. You'll hear that interview later on in the episode. He was great, as always. In the meantime, some news dropped in the past week. What do you want to start with? Schedule?
I think we should start with the basketball.
Bahamian
the actual
dominance.
basketball.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I mean, we got to, you and I, it's not easy to watch these games that are just for this tournament, but you and I got to watch the majority of the last game. And it was so fun to watch basketball again, but also just to sort of know and realize that Eric Gordon is on the Suns. That was kind of sort of the revelation of watching that game to me, and just sort of hitting me all of what that means for the Suns in this upcoming season. Because for those who missed it, the Bahamian team had to win, I think it was 4 straight games, right, total, in order to win this tournament. And they did, and it was an Olympic qualifying tournament. It doesn't mean that they're going to be in the Olympics just yet.
It's actually it's the pre-qualifying tournament.
Yeah.
So there's a
if they lost,
tournament.
they would have been out of the Olympics.
Right.
That's the important part.
It's step 1 on their path to competing for the Olympics Paris 2024 next year. There will now be a qualifying tournament in early July, just a few weeks of 2024, that is, just a few weeks before the Olympics, that they have locked in their spot for. Perhaps the historically interesting part here, not only that this was a huge win for the Bahamian program, who historically, going into this tournament, they were ranked number 56 in the world. I think it's obvious that their talent, when DeAndre Ayton, Buddy Hield, and Eric Gordon all play for them, is much higher than number 56 in the world. But also historically relevant because they beat Argentina twice in a single week. Argentina was the host country for this pre-qualifying tournament for the Americas version of the tournament, because there's a tournament that goes on in the Americas, there's a tournament that goes on in Africa, Europe, Asia, etc. But Argentina was the host country for their leg of the tournament, and the Bahamas beat them twice. Argentina's ranked 4th in the world.
Yeah.
And
the Bahamas are a tiny country.
Tiny country. How tiny? In fact, population 400,000. Less than the size, not just of Phoenix, less than the size of Tucson.
Yeah.
And a country the size of the Bahamas, less than the size of Tucson, knocked out Argentina officially. So Argentina, they already were not going to be in the FIBA World Cup next week. And now, because they lost this pre-qualifying tournament, they are officially knocked out of Olympic contention for 2024. So they will not be there.
Kind of crazy, by the way.
Huge run for them already. Like, it's going to take a lot more just for the Bahamas to be able to qualify. Their path is going to get even harder with this qualifying tournament that they're going to be in next July, but already a massive run. And if, like, by some incredible odds they manage to make it, it would just be a huge story for that country.
The Suns have there's not a lot of NBA players playing right now outside of the actual World Cup, but the Suns have 2 players on this Bahamian team, which, of course, made a lot of Suns fans have some level of vested interest in them winning, and we got to see that happen for those watching. And if you missed it, I mean, the story of the final game was Eric Gordon, who completely took over at the end of the game when both DeAndre Ayton and Buddy Hield, who were the other 2 NBA players, were struggling offensively. And Eric Gordon went 6 for 7 from 3, including 3 threes in the last 2.5 minutes of the game to really completely slam the door on Argentina. By the way, they were trailing in that game, the Bahamas, until Eric Gordon put the team on his back to win it. 35-year-old Eric Gordon, who basically played point guard on that team because of their inability to pass outside of him.
Yeah,
but really was their main scorer. That was his main role on that team, and he was incredible in that game.
And to be honest, was faced with an Argentinian program on the other side that had just a lot more depth than the team from the Bahamas, and also had Facundo Campazzo, as a former NBA player, as their point guard. And what that meant was, on the other side was this Argentinian team with a lot of ball movement and a lot of kind of beautiful game style basketball. At least that was what they were trying to replicate. And here was the Bahamas. And I don't know, they didn't really, there was a massive assist differential in that last game, the finals, between these 2 teams. But what the Bahamas had is they had hoopers. And Eric Gordon was able to put the team on his back. You mentioned those 3 threes in the final 2 minutes. One of them was like a 30-foot pull-up launch. I encourage everyone to go look up the highlights. You can find these highlights online. One was a pull-up launch. The other 2 were like prime James Harden-style step backs. He also had a clutch steal in one of the final defensive possessions of the game. He was awesome. He completely willed them to that victory. Granted, DeAndre Ayton also played a big role in this one too. Just not not as a scorer. He only had 10 points. He kind of struggled with his jump shot, but also played a very big role in the final because he locked it down on the defensive end. He had 21 rebounds. 21, and played a really important physical role as an enforcer, which is exactly what his team needed him to do.
And I think the story of the game was Eric Gordon. The story of the tournament was really all 3 of those guys playing well: Eric Gordon, Buddy Hield, and DeAndre. And it took all 3 of them playing well to even be in that finals. But, at a certain point of that game, you kind of looked at it and said, okay, this is over. The Bahamas are done. And Eric Gordon just did not let it happen. He snatched victory from the hands of defeat. And Argentina, for the first time in a long time, won't be in the Olympics. And it was really cool to see. Now, Eric Gordon playing well was sort of expected. He's a really good basketball player. He, I think, was beyond what we expect him to be on the Suns in this tournament. But if he can bring any of that to the Suns this upcoming season, he's kind of the perfect 5th man in that starting lineup, especially offensively, but is a good defender too. It's just, he wasn't just shooting threes, which of course he can do. He's shooting them from everywhere. And he's even attacking the basket. His handles looked good. He had an insane dunk in one of the previous games of the tournament, and he just looks like a great basketball player. The Suns haven't had a lot of new guys join the team in the last few off seasons, but this off season we have really 2 big shining stars. Of course, Bradley Beal being the obvious one, but Eric Gordon, a long-time NBA player, 35-year-old with a lot of good basketball under his belt, and it's exciting to see him play. But DeAndre Ayton, I think the story from DeAndre Ayton from the tournament was, I mean, he's really from the Bahamas. Like, he grew up there and he got to be there when they, won this tournament. One of the biggest moments in basketball for the Bahamas ever, probably the biggest. And he gets to see that through to the next stage of this. And he played, from everything I saw, I didn't get to see every game, unfortunately. Like I said, it was hard to watch. He played pretty well throughout the tournament. Offensively, I think it started great for him. Maybe it got a little worse as the overall tournament progressed. But from what I saw, he was really locked in on rebounds. He was locked in defensively the majority of the time. And it was interesting, to see this finals game where he had, how many points did he end up finishing with? I know he had 8 in the fourth quarter. I don't know how much.
I think he only had 10. I don't have the box score in front of me.
Yeah,
I think it was
9 or 10.
21.
And you kind of think about his role for the Suns, and that kind of box score for the Suns would be huge. I know 10 points, he probably wants to score more, but if he's not, being effective in other places is so massive. And I thought in that finals game for the Bahamas, he really exemplified how huge he can be even if he's not scoring. And we saw it in that specific game.
Yeah, and just the way he was scoring, like cleaning up everything around the basket. Buddy Hield, for instance, would go hard, bring another defender with him, and kind of try and float something off the backboard. And if it didn't go in, as it mostly didn't because Hield was really struggling in the finals, Ayton was right there to clean it up. And like he just had an interior gravity about him that was really important. And you hope to see him bring to the Suns this year. And ultimately, I think he will. Regardless of what happens next with the Bahamas, because some people are probably thinking to themselves, okay, what does this have to do with the Suns? First of all, we're rooting for the Bahamas. They go into this tournament next year where 24 countries now are going to enter the next stage of the qualifying tournament for the Olympics. Only 4 countries are going to come out for the final 4 spots. So those odds are what they are. But the relevance that it has for the Suns, even going into this season, is you have these 2 new teammates, DeAndre Ayton and Eric Gordon, who just developed some chemistry. Now they know each other. Going into the season, they have good things to say about each other from everything I've seen in their media scrums. And they also look both legitimately conditioned. I can't stress enough how important I think it is to be playing at this time of year, actual, real competitive basketball, regardless, honestly, of what country you're playing, like the level of talent and all that. I think it's so much more valuable to be playing these types of games where it's hyper-competitive basketball versus just being back in the U.S., like, getting your practice runs in, even if those are with other NBA players, like it's not the same. You have to be locked in order to win these games. There's a lot of blood that goes on the line in these international competitions. And so to see both of those guys get that conditioning in, I think they have earned a few weeks of rest, and then they should be able to go into training camp in top form, basically.
I mean, you mentioned it. Amar'e Stoudemire credits their conditioning for their success. When they were on the Suns, these NBA players understand how important being in shape is and coming to the season in shape. Of course, they'll all be in shape by the time the playoffs come. I hopefully, for most of these NBA players. But starting the season off right, I think will be particularly important for the Suns because it's such a massive change in how they're going to play. New coach, new system, new defensive system, new players. The most ball-dominant player on the Suns previously is now gone in Chris Paul, so you can't rely on the Chris Paul system, which is just creating a shot on every single possession. So starting off well is going to be really important for this team. So both of them coming to the season in shape and ready, and like you said, with a little bit of extra chemistry, is going to be huge. We've talked a lot about that 5th guy who's going to be the starter on the Suns, and look, I am sort of rooting for Eric Gordon for that fifth spot. I know I've talked about it on the podcast before.
If you're trying to hide it, you're not hiding it very well. You've talked about it a few times now.
I'm rooting for it. I wouldn't be mad if he wasn't the 5th starter. Like, it's not a case where he absolutely needs to start to be effective. He's not that kind of player. He's going to be great if he comes off the bench as well. But to me, watching these Bahamas games, where he has a higher level of responsibility, a bigger role. He's essentially the Devin Booker of that team, if you will. Watching these games, it makes me realize it doesn't matter if he starts or not. He's going to play so much, and they just need him to play a lot. And, at 35, it'll be interesting to see how he holds up with a lot of playing time. The Suns have options, so maybe they'll lower it during the regular season. But it's just clear how big of a role he's going to have on this team and how important he's going to be. And I found myself being very excited. Optimism season, of course, is here. And I found myself being very excited about this Suns team while watching that Bahamas team. I don't know about you.
Very excited for the Suns team. Yeah, also just a nice warm-up, to be honest, for that tournament. The pre-qualifying tournament is over, but a nice warm-up for other international play. Like, I imagine we'll be talking about the FIBA World Cup now in the next couple of weeks. going to be rooting
only
for
former Suns players, though.
Yeah, going to be rooting for a couple of former Suns there on Team USA, and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Obviously, everyone's talking about Anthony Edwards right now. He's been in the news for the past couple of days because of the Herculean performance he put up. Ironically, I think it was against Greece, right? There's that. There is one Suns player who will be participating in that tournament. That's Yuta Watanabe with Japan. So we'll be tracking him as well. But yeah, just excited for some serious basketball to watch.
And speaking of serious basketball, since the last time we recorded on this feed, the entirety of the schedule was released. We've talked about some of it on our previous episode, but I wanted to bring it up again here. I know we talked about it on our Patreon podcast as well because we talked about that the day after it was released. But just some things about this schedule that I wanted to mention. Real quick, one thing I did find out. There are 25 games on ESPN, TNT, and ABC this upcoming season, 11 on ESPN, 10 on TNT, 4 on ABC, plus all the NBA TV games, which don't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. But I talked about it on Twitter a little bit in that what happens for some of these games, ESPN, TNT, and ABC, is they are often blacked out on local channels when they're broadcast on national TV. But not all of them. That's 25 total games. I did find out that there will be at least 72 games broadcast on the local channels. So we all know about the changes with the broadcast system. The Suns will be broadcast on Arizona Family, Channel 3, locally, for those of you who are local. 72 of those games will be broadcast by Gray TV on that channel or their new channel, which will be Arizona Family Sports. So you don't have to worry about missing any major portions of the season with 25 games on ESPN, TNT, and ABC, but 10 of them may be blacked out locally. So keep that in mind if you're planning to watch all of the games this season, and I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast do watch all 82 games. Just keep that in mind for 10 of the games. If you don't have cable, if you don't have access to TNT, ESPN, or ABC, maybe go to a bar, maybe go to a friend's house to watch those games if you're trying to avoid paying for cable this upcoming season.
Go to the arena for those 10 games if you're a high roller.
Yeah.
Do we know what the ticket prices are for this year yet? Have we?
Yeah, they're out. They're not as bad as I thought. I'll be honest.
Okay.
They seem comparable to the previous few seasons.
Okay, that's pretty good. I'll have to get out there and put that to the test myself sometime pretty soon. But go out to the arena if you can afford it for a couple games. Should be a fun time.
I will also mention, since I have this info, I should put it out there. There's 2 channels that they're broadcasting this on, Arizona Family, and then Arizona Family is creating a channel called Arizona Family Sports, which some Suns game will be broadcast on that second channel as well. That second channel is not launched yet. It will be launched soon. That means that it's not currently on any cable packages. So if you have like DirecTV, if you have YouTube TV, if you have Hulu Live, you might not see that second channel. But I can tell you from who I spoke with, the Arizona Family is attempting to get that channel available on all platforms. So anywhere that you can watch TV, if you're scared that you're not going to be able to watch it, as long as they're going to cooperate with Arizona Family, that should be available to you on any platform that you use to watch these games. So if you're worried about that, don't worry about it. Hopefully you won't have to think about it at all. You'll just be able to click the Suns games once you see it on your TV. But I wanted to mention that here. The other thing with the schedule, 14 back-to-back games this upcoming season. Any chance the Suns actually rest players now in back-to-back games?
Oh, man.
Now that Chris Paul is gone?
Yeah. Well, I don't think Book is going to do it. I doubt, frankly, I don't think much is going to change with that. They can afford to. I probably would. I ranted enough on the extra episode last week already about how I hate the back-to-backs and I wish... I would be fine with the NBA reducing the schedule just a bit or extending the schedule out a few weeks, whatever they got to do so that we can get rid of these back-to-backs because I just view them as such an inferior product compared to what we expect when you have 2 teams going up at even strength. 14, that number's too high for me. I don't think they're going to rest guys, though. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Kevin Durant is really the prime candidate for it. Right, if the Suns rest anyone, just because he's played. Not only is he, is he the oldest player on the Suns? He must be close.
Yeah, he is.
If it's not him, it's Eric Gordon. I imagine they're pretty close in age. But not only is Kevin Durant the oldest player on the Suns, but he's also just played so much basketball in that he's in the playoffs every year. So if they're going to do it, they should do it. I mean, that's why you have 3 stars, right? You have the ability of just playing 2 in a game if you can. So actually, I kind of hope they do.
You're making me double check now. Eric Gordon is... Oh, no. What is it? I have to do math? Nope, KD's older. KD is older by about 3 months than Eric Gordon, so he is the oldest player on the Suns. But yeah, KD, he's got the regular season accolades. He's got all of the playoff stuff. And then he's also got the Olympic records, too. That's a lot of mileage on his body. People forget KD is a 3-time gold medalist for Team USA already.
What a legend.
You think he's going to participate in 2024? I mean, he's still good enough. I have no idea what the plan is, but he's good enough. If he wants a spot, they should give him one. And I believe
it'd be pretty cool to have that many gold medals if they win, of course.
He is currently tied with Carmelo Anthony for being for the all-time lead, being a 3-time gold medalist. He could get his 4th if Team USA won next year, and that would be the record.
Well, I can say Booker will participate, I think, and that'll be fun to watch. Maybe we'll get to see Booker on the court with Mikal Bridges once again. We talked about, the Christmas Day game. The Suns are really, or the NBA is really pushing the rivalry with Dallas. There's other things like the road trip, longest road trip for the Suns is 7 games, that kind of thing. But do you have any other thoughts on the schedule that you want to get to before we switch over to good old Tom Leander?
Man, not in particular. We covered some of this stuff last week too. Just, it's good to see as many national TV appearances as there are. Obviously, people need to figure out their own situations with their cable packages and whatnot. But I believe Phoenix, including the NBA TV games, is situated 3rd, just behind the Lakers and Golden State, which feels right to me for a market of our size.
For our ethical hoops campaign that we're trying to... Yeah, we want people to know about ethical hoops, and the NBA is doing us a favor by giving the rest of the NBA fans 37 games to really enjoy it, right?
Well, and just to contextualize that, we're ahead of Boston. Boston, I feel like, is one of those teams that first of all, is really good, and I expect them to be really good this year, but benefits from some sort of East Coast media bias sometimes. And then Denver, we're ahead of Denver, and that one doesn't surprise me as much given where Denver is in the media rankings. But they just won the championship and continue to be a very formidable foe. So, I think it's kind of a big deal to see Phoenix where they are. And we're going to just get to hopefully enjoy them in those national TV appearances as often as possible, rather than hopefully not being embarrassed in any of them.
I know what the NBA schedule release really does for me is just make me excited about seeing basketball and really get me ready. And add the Bahamas games to that, in that we actually got to watch Suns players play, and they played really well and won. I know I'm really gearing up for some basketball, so that was the main thing for me. But let's switch over to our interview with the legend of Suns broadcasting, Tom Leander, who was awesome to join us. We'll take a quick break with some ads, and then you'll get to hear that. And then after that, we'll be back with our Patreon podcast midweek. Thank you, everyone, for listening. All right, joining us, one of our favorite guests here on the podcast, Tom Leander, longtime member of the Suns organization, doing the pregame, halftime show, calling games. Tom, you've done basically everything for this Suns team over the years, haven't you?
Well, if I'm one of your favorite guests, why has it been since 2019 since I've been on? That's kind of my first comment.
I feel bad even asking.
We're trying not to bug you, man.
No, you guys can always check in. Yeah, no, it's been a great career. Heck, I just hit the 30-year mark with the Suns.
Wow.
And it was very cool. Our new president, Josh Bartelstein, sent me an email and said, "Hey, happy 30th." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "It was 30 years ago that day that I started with the Suns," which shows you the changes around the offices these days.
Right.
As I emailed Josh back and said, "Oh my God, first of all, I can't believe this is the anniversary. And secondly, I can't believe you sent me an email. Thank you."
Yeah.
So, some good changes around the organization. That's for sure.
Yeah. And Josh was probably like 6 or 7 years old when you started.
I think
he's so young.
I think the Suns have some really good human relations people, telling him what the dates are for all the employees.
Does that make your first season, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Barkley's first season or was it the season after that?
It
Do you
was the
happen to
season
remember?
after it. Yeah, I worked for a
Okay.
production company that worked for the Suns. So I did cover the 93 finals while still working for that company. And then the Suns brought it in-house that next year. And Scott Geyer, who's the director of broadcasting now for the Diamondbacks, he's the one that turned my life around with the job offer of a lifetime.
Wow, that's awesome. You mentioned Bartlestein, and I was thinking about your career and just thinking about how crazy last year must have been. I guess you've seen now two ownership changes in your time with the Suns, and you survived both of them. Congratulations, first of all, on that one. And obviously last year, we didn't really know what was going to happen when the season started. There was a change in ownership right before the trade deadline, a massive, maybe one of the biggest trades the Suns have ever made, definitely the biggest mid-season trade the Suns have ever made. And then, of course, when the season ends, there's going to be this change in broadcaster where it's going to be. It must have been a pretty wild season for you to endure all through the season.
Yeah, I mean that the Kevin Durant trade certainly shook everybody up, and happening right after the press conference, with the ownership change and Matt Ishbia coming in, and he just, the moment I met him, he's just so full of energy and enthusiasm and expectations. I mean, for all of us, whether it be players, coaches, broadcasters, I mean, everybody's got to pick it up a notch. But it was obvious from the first minute he took over that he was going to make every move possible to finally give Phoenix a championship team. So it's been a ton of fun. I mean, we're looking forward to the new relationship with Channel 3, having 3 million potential viewers instead of 800,000. And it goes back to the UPN 45 and KUTP days when everybody was watching, and our pregame ratings used to be like 13 or 14. And it was and the games were over 20 in terms of rating points. So this is going to be really, really exciting, and looking forward to it. And meetings with our production crew and with Channel 3, and just kind of in conjunction. And there's just a huge buzz in the offices, obviously.
That's awesome. For anyone who doesn't know, and I'm sure everyone basically does know at this point, but you're talking about you guys transitioning from previously a previous deal with Bally Sports to, I believe it's Gray Television now, who are with Channel 3, and just potentially rapidly increasing your local audience there in doing so. And it's kind of interesting because in the typical off season, really, when we talk about like the sort of stuff that you as broadcasters can analyze, you're just sort of talking about the roster changes themselves. It's not typical necessarily that we get these types of broadcast changes. So really, what was your initial reaction, I suppose, when you heard about that change, that you guys were moving to Channel 3 this year? And I guess, is it a sign also of sort of a first domino falling in the industry in general? Is this something that you think other teams are going to replicate now?
Oh, absolutely. I think Matt Ishbia kicked the door down, and you're already starting to see some teams go to over-the-air television, and it makes so much sense. It just increases the scope of your audience, the amount of fans, the merchandise, and obviously the thrill of purchasing tickets to go to the games after watching them on TV. It's just it's going to have a massive effect. But for us, I mean, we kind of heard whispers about it maybe a year or so ago, and everybody knew that Bally's and their parent company were having some troubles. So the fact that they actually finalized the deal, and again, the amount of people reaching out to me, friends, family. Again, of course, I also get the text messages. Are you going to keep your job? Are you still going to be there? I'm like, I hope so. I mean, I haven't heard anything different, but the Suns, as part of their broadcast agreements and contracts, always maintain control over the broadcasters. So I think we felt pretty strong that we would still be kept around, but at the same time, you don't know. And it's fun to be looking ahead to this season again with EJ and TC and Ann Myers Drysdale and Kay Ray and Sophie Cunningham. I mean, we have such a fun group of professionals that all get along well together in our production crew. If you're going to increase your audience to 3 million people, you want experience behind the wheel. And that certainly is what we have with Dan Siekman and Bob Adlock and all of our producers, Mark Goldberg and Ryan Bafalukas, Brock Kraft. I'm going to go through the whole list if you guys give me enough time, because they're the ones that
Go
nobody
for it.
ever hears about or talks
Yeah.
about. And they're the ones that put it all together. So, but again, for me to have Tom Chambers along, you're like, okay, it's, I think, been kind of my, like I said, a dream job. And then to be able to form the kind of friendship and the chemistry that we have. I mean, I sure hope we can keep rolling with it.
Recently on an episode, Sam and I were talking about the Ring of Honor, which we'll get to Amar'e and Marion as well. But one of the conversations that we had was Devin Booker and where he stands on the greatest Suns of all time list. And I'm curious, you doing research for this episode, Tom, I was looking up information on you, and I found a clip of the halftime show from 1996 that you were hosting, and you were throwing to clips of Michael Jordan talking and Charles Barkley talking in these clips. And I'm just thinking about the perspective that you have on all these players, all of these opportunities to see these legends over the last 30 years up close. How does Devin Booker compare to a lot of those players in your mind, and what would it take for him to be considered the greatest Suns player of all time, in your opinion?
Wow. I mean, that's such a difficult question for me, because I go back to the days of being a ball boy and, idolizing Alvin Adams and
Right.
Paul
Wow.
and Walter Davis, and then getting to know all those guys personally. So I'm not that unbiased when it comes
Of
to
course.
trying to make a decision like that. But when all is said and done, Book's going to be number one. I mean, he's going to own every record that the Suns have. He's helped lead them to the finals. And, I don't think his value is going to be diminished by the fact that he has KD and Bradley Beal. I mean, people hopefully will step back and go, those guys only came here because of Book. And you guys know as well as anybody, there was a time here for that 10-year span that we didn't think we could recruit anybody, any free agent to come to Phoenix. So I think more so his loyalty to me stands out number one. His numbers are obviously glaring. Everybody sees that. But his loyalty, his patronage to this Phoenix community and to this team, this organization, and talk about me going through different owners. He's gone through different owners as well. It's just unprecedented. It's unprecedented in today's professional sports world, no matter what sport. I mean, football, baseball, basketball, nobody's sticking with their team. Booker has, and I think that's going to end up being, the final analysis with Devin Booker, aside from what he did on the basketball court, but what he's meant to this community. Like I said, Walter Davis would have been my choice for a long time, and not just because he was the leading scorer, but because, again, he meant so much to this organization, led to the playoffs year after year. And then you have to talk about Nash and Barkley. How can you not discuss the guys that have won MVP? So, it'd be great to see Book, get some sort of nod in MVP balloting. But the fact that he was first team All NBA, to me, that was a big piece to the puzzle, because I think you have Steve Nash and Jason Kidd are the only two Suns players that are 3-time first team All NBA. So you're talking about 3 different seasons, your top 5 player in the league. So, I'd love to see Book get another 1 or 2 of those and be up there in MVP balloting. But it's going to be tough. Again, with Beal and Durant by his side, the Suns could win 67 games, and they're going to go, well, you know what? Jokic is still you take Jokic off that team, or whoever it might be. Giannis.
It's the most frustrating part of MVP narrative voting in the NBA right now is that it feels increasingly like the guy who puts up otherworldly stats on a 6th seed gets rewarded. More often than not.
Yeah. And it was like Barkley. Barkley comes to the Suns. He's new. He's fresh. The Suns are all the rage in the NBA. And so he wins MVP, and deservedly so. But, Booker's now been with the Suns, and now they're going to say, yes, he's saddled up with a couple other superstars. So I don't think MVP is going to probably be a realistic possibility for him, but I don't think he needs that to be deemed the greatest Sun of all time.
Like you said, he's going to have every single, I'm assuming he stays, through this current extension of his, which is only kicking in now. He'll have every single record. He'll have the scoring record in a couple of seasons. It'll take him a little while to catch up to Walter Davis, who's the record holder, but he's already making great progress there. He passed speaking of which, he passed both Amar'e and Marion recently on the Suns' all-time scoring list. And so I wanted to ask you about those two guys, because I imagine you have a bit of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine you have a bit of a special relationship with that particular era of Suns basketball, just because those were the years where you were most frequently in the play-by-play role, traveling with the team on the road, lots of chartered planes and whatnot. For me personally, I know Mike and I were talking about this last week when the news was announced. I love the fact that it's announced that Amar'e and Marion are going into the Ring of Honor. I had started to lose a little bit of hope that it would happen. And so just curious to get your reaction, first of all, when you heard that. Again, I don't know if this was something where there were also some whispers for the past year, or if it was more of a surprise to you in getting your reaction that those two guys are going to be immortalized for what they did as members of the organization.
The debate was who's going to go in first. And I love how they removed that debate by putting them both in this season. Because all right, who are you going to choose, Shawn Marion or Amar'e Stoudemire? It's like, that's a difficult debate, but in terms of longevity and numbers, Shawn was definitely going to be the first guy in my estimation. But Amar'e certainly deserved it as well. I mean, he just brought that badass attitude. When you walk onto the floor and you look around as one of the starters at the other four guys that you walk out there with, and you look at Amar'e, it just pumps you up with confidence, knowing that you're going to have a guy out there that's going to, be an intimidating presence. And, he played hard, and, he had his critics as well. But I mean, it was just such a wonderful era. And like I said, for me to be traveling with that team, to be on the charter planes and buses, and I mean, the stories and the memories that I have of being around those guys, and, Steve Nash, obviously kind of the cornerstone of all that. And one time we were in Minnesota, and it was after a game against the Timberwolves. And this was typical Steve Nash too. He just yelled up to the bus driver, "Stop the bus. We're all going to dinner." And everybody just got up out of the bus, freezing in downtown Minneapolis. And guys jumped off the bus, and Shawn and Amar'e and Steve and all the guys. So, the leadership and that Steve had, and then obviously the contributions. And I think about Shawn Marion and the playoff series against Dallas when he locked up Dirk Nowitzki, and the great performances he had there. And Amar'e, I mean, obviously my first thought is poor Anthony Tolliver, but and all the great dunks that he had. That just
speaking of which, does it feel good to know that you will always have that iconic call? It's
so good.
You claim the most iconic call of Amar'e's career on any highlight reel. That's going to be the first clip that plays. Does that feel good?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Actually, what's really cool is my kids send it to me. They're like, "Dad, we heard your voice again on Twitter or something," and they'll send it to me. So that's the best part. When your kids enjoy it and your kids are proud, that makes Dad proud. So that was it was a golden moment. I was fortunate that you could kind of see it coming. And I remember sitting right next to Scott Williams, and Scott stood up, and we just went nuts. But the best part was after that dunk, Golden State calls a timeout, and they replayed it in Oakland over and over again during the timeout. And their crowd, the Warrior fans, were going nuts. I mean, you don't see that. Usually the home team's like, okay, now let's cut to some promotional message on the big screen. So that was fantastic. That's what was beautiful about the place and the moment too, is that the Golden State fans have always been so passionate, and to kind of carry that moment through the timeout was something special.
I was thinking about that. I mean, obviously that dunk in particular is really never far from my thoughts, to be honest. But in this last few weeks, there are a lot of fans looking up Amar'e Stoudemire and Shawn Marion highlights, and some of them for the first time. They're younger fans. They didn't really see that firsthand the way that Sam and I did, and of course you sitting courtside for those highlights. And that one in particular always stands out. You know what I love about that particular call? Obviously, you got your catchphrase in there. We talked about that the last time you were here, the elevates and detonates. And then immediately, maybe the top dunk of his career, which I also love. But something about the way you go, hello, right when he slams it is just so perfect. And is that, you said you could see it coming a little bit, and you could. Steph Curry, by the way, on the court for that game, very young Steph Curry. when something like just shouting hello when it happens, is that something that is premeditated at all, or is it just all in the moment? Whatever happens, you're just going with the flow.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment thing. Plus, he was racing from mid-court, full speed, and you could just see the momentum carrying. And hello actually was something when I first started doing play-by-play in college at Loyola Marymount University. Hello was just that was probably my first catchphrase or whatever. Just kind of used that, and it just came out, I think, from having used it in the past. And yeah, it was cool. But going back to Amar'e too, that was obviously the one highlight, but man, I think about those playoff series when he dominated Tim Duncan. I mean, you look back at his playoff numbers against San Antonio, and yes, the team wasn't always successful in winning the series, but Amar'e was fantastic. He put up astounding numbers against Tim Duncan, and that's actually when I think about Amar'e and his impact. It was playoff time against Duncan and San Antonio. We just could never get over the hump. But that, to me, when you shine in the playoffs, like Devin Booker has done. I mean, Devin's played his best basketball in the playoffs. And I feel like for Amar'e Stoudemire, that was very much the same thing in his career. We saw some of his best basketball in the postseason. And Sean Marion, too. I mean, there were times I even need to go back, as you guys said, go back and watch the highlights or look at the numbers. He had so many 30-20 games or 30-15 games, and you forget what a potent scorer he was. And as you guys have pointed out and other people know, I mean, without running a play, it was just grabbing loose rebounds and scoring in the lane with his little pogo stick jump shot and three-pointer. And that was another thing when Sean, and he not only the Ring of Honor, but he's got to go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, when he retired, his probability percentage was 92-94%, and for some reason it's dropped to 75%, as if people are forgetting what he did. But I think it's LeBron, Dirk, and Sean Marion, the only three players to have scored 17,000 points, amassed 10,000 rebounds, have 1,000 blocks, and 700 or more three-pointers. And then if you add on steals, I mean, Sean was, I think, just under 2,000 career steals. So it would just be him and LeBron. With
probably just him and LeBron, yeah.
Yeah.
Dirk was not a master of the steal for
the master of defense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I just, again, with Amar'e, like thinking about, you were talking about those series he had with Duncan and the numbers he was putting up, over 30 points per game in those series. And yeah, even though the Suns weren't always successful, like the fact that at the age of maybe his early 20s up through his mid 20s, Amar'e was in this conversation with three power forwards who were legitimate MVP candidates year in, year out, and Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki. And he was in that conversation. He was right there. Really just remarkable. The other thing, last thing I'll say about that highlight, and then we'll leave the Tolliver dunk alone for good, but
you
don't have to. No. Keep it alive.
The last thing I love about that clip is just at the very end when you're like, that was savage. You were like 5 years ahead of anyone else on using the word savage as like an adjective like that. Because
you know what? I think if I used that term now, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
You think?
You just never know. I mean, seriously, like terms and phrases.
Oh no, you'd be fine. It became more of a slang thing, I think, after.
Yeah.
But you were ahead of your era there. It was good.
I stole that one from my brother Peter. My brother Peter played rugby, and he traveled around the world, and he was the one that always used the word savage. Ooh, that's a savage song. So I definitely have to give him credit for that. That just kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, that's for you, Pete.
I love that you talked about how Sean Marion is still underappreciated, and the Ring of Honor is one thing, but I agree. I think that the Hall of Fame is the next step, and I'm curious to see if they will end up doing that. But thinking back to just your career as a broadcaster and doing all that you have done for such a long time, I'm curious. It's changed. The entirety of what you've done and the job that you have done over the course of the time that you've done it. It's changed so dramatically. And I'm curious what your perspective is on the biggest changes in what your job is over the time that you've done it, whether that be of the day-to-day operations of it or how people perceive it or the impact that it's had on the community. Because it's been a long time for you, and I'm curious what you think is the biggest change.
Well, the biggest change is when I was first hired, I was the only guy out there. It was me and a camera. And I remember pitching it to Al McCoy and Greg Schulte, or, Al McCoy and Eddie over the years. And I was just in studio by myself. I remember one of the first shows too. I tried to make some sort of like a lighthearted comment to Al. I think he was in Los Angeles at the time. They're in a monitor. It's him and Greg Schulte. And it was kind of one of those, lighthearted comments, ha ha ha, and then just dead air. I'm like, oh my God, this is brutal. And so I look back on that going, I guess I survived somehow, but I appreciate it so much more because now working with TC and having that back and forth and the banter, and it's to me a lot more enjoyable for me to look back on shows with TC than to cringe and look at some of those early days. But we did a lot more features back then too, so that's what's probably changed the most. We had a lot more access with the players. Back then, we did Suns Undercover with the hidden cameras and Sean Marion on a pedal cab and Rex Chapman, Chappie, the street musician outside of Bank One Ballpark. That was hilarious. Tom Gugliotta at a car wash. I mean, we did so many fun things with the players, and that's probably what I miss the most. Now they don't need us as much as they used to, or like enjoy, like, hey, we're going to do a feature on you. Great. Now they're like, nah, I got my own YouTube channel. I don't need you, kind of a thing. That's what's changed a lot. So in terms of creative output and features and behind the scenes, that's still there, but it's not as personal as it used to be. And the relationships with players are not what they used to be. It's still good, but it's just not like, and again, a lot of it too was when I was doing play-by-play and traveling and getting to know them on a more personal basis. Now it's just pretty much professional, and there are a lot more guidelines these days and restrictions. And, there was no social media, one wrong comment, like I said, one misdeed, whatever, it's going to be broadcast all over the world. So I think everybody's a little bit more wary and cautious. So I miss those days of just being able to kind of hang with the guys, and they would pretty much do, whatever we wanted to do in terms of creative features for the shows. And I think that's what really gave it its personality when we were Suns Game Time, and kind of gave us our brand. And that's something that I hope we can go back to now that we're on over-the-air television, bring back some of those features. I've talked to the producers about that. We did a thing with Eddie Johnson, Order on the Court, and we actually went to a courtroom and he put on a judge's robe and I think a wig or something for the open to it. So those were, fun times, and I think fans would appreciate maybe some of those little flashback vignettes.
Fans will definitely appreciate those. And I will say there have to be players still there are players who want to have fun. So, it must be possible to find them. It's just, I will agree with you. It's got to be harder, especially when some of these guys come out of their big college programs being so well media trained. You see a lot with the guys who go to the Dukes or Kentuckys or UNCs or even, Villanovas, whatever. They go to those programs. And by the time they're in the NBA, they've kind of been pumped through the machine, so to speak. Like they're used to all of the big interviews and they're used to the big stages. And they're just a little bit more wary of those types of opportunities.
Yeah, but they have their own media machines. I mean, like Kevin Durant's got his own podcast. I mean, they don't need us to kind of relay their message or depict their personality, show what they're like away from the court. I mean, they're doing it themselves. So
I feel like Ish Wainwright would be the type of guy on this team that I think about probably would love having some sort of fun with you guys. I mean, I'm not going to speak for him as if I know him personally, but I'm just trying to, brainstorm. Like there are guys who I think their personalities would be conducive to that, who are not Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant's his own beast. We know what Kevin Durant is like. He's all hoop, and he's not really interested in the other stuff.
And he's just so famous too.
Yeah, well, Chris Paul. I mean, we hardly did anything with Chris, but we're like, obviously he likes to have fun. All you have to do is look at his State Farm commercials. We're like, man, wish we could do that with you, but they don't. Yeah, they have their own machine behind them, and they can control it. And controlling the message is everything these days.
Before we started, we were talking about the last time that you joined us, and it was, I believe, August 2019, Sam. Is that the date that you had?
That is correct, yes. 4 years ago, the world was a different place the last time Tom Leander was on the show. We were kind of just getting started, too, so it's nice of you, Tom, that you even said yes to us at that point.
And, looking forward, though, back then we were talking about Kelly Oubre, we were talking about Ricky Rubio, and and the season that the Suns were going to have. I mean, little did we know that was the beginning of all of this that we have now. But now looking forward, you have, prime Devin Booker, potential top 5, top 10 player in the NBA season coming up, hopefully. Kevin Durant, one of the top 10 greatest players of all time on the Suns. And then another all-star in Bradley Beal, who I think surprised just about anyone that he's even on the team going forward. Looking at this upcoming season, you have to think that this is probably some of the highest expectations that the Suns have ever faced. What do you think about this upcoming season, Tom?
Yeah, definitely highest expectations since Charles arrived, and deservedly so for this team. Bradley Beal is one of those players that I know I haven't appreciated, just because Washington has not made much noise at all in terms of the playoffs and him playing in prime time. And but to think about the times that the Suns have played Washington and Beal, like he's had some battles with Book. There was, I think, a double or triple overtime game. Beal had, 40 plus points and triple double. This guy is ridiculously talented, and I love how he attacks the basket. He's like Book. I mean, they're almost, in my estimation, mirror images in certain respects in how they score the basketball. Whether it be off the dribble, mid-range, attacking the basket. They just have so much confidence. And they're both really good playmakers. My prediction was that Book was going to be more of the point guard and running the offense, because we saw what he did, especially with Chris Paul out last season. I mean, he was good for 8 to 10 assists every night. But I love the fact that they're all going to be able to move it around. Different people are going to bring the ball up the court. We saw that with Denver. I mean, Aaron Gordon brought it up. Jokic brought it up. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope brought it up. The Browns brought it up. It was somebody different all the time. And so that way you can't focus on, like when we just had Chris Paul bringing it up and they would ambush him at half court. The weapons, and I know Vogel really wants to pick up the pace, and that's music to all of our ears. And the changes that they've made off the bench. And I love the fact that we kept Damian Lee and Josh Okogie as well. I mean, I think those guys are obviously going to be, important at some point. And James Jones has always said this, like the guys that he's brought in, whether it's Utah or Metu and some of the new players. And I really like Eubanks. I think Eubanks, and I was a big Jock fan. I love Landale, but I'm telling you, Eubanks has more skill and he's a better shot blocker. And each of these guys, and James has said this, they're all going to win the Suns a game at some point during the season. So the fact that the bench is deeper, more 3-point shooters, and now, the last guy that they added, Eric Gordon, and what he's doing for the Bahamas and closing out that game with a couple of threes late and scoring 27 points and beating Argentina twice. And more than anything, we haven't even talked about DeAndre Ayton, but my highlight of this summer in terms of watching any of our players on the court, we've seen a lot of the workouts with Book and KD, and my highlight was, and you guys probably saw this, it was a clip earlier in that tournament with DeAndre Ayton, who sprinted down the court faster than I've ever seen him run. It was like Usain Bolt. I don't know if you guys saw it. He went from rim to rim, and I've just never seen that from him. If this is going to be an indication of what we're going to see from DeAndre Ayton, then everybody should be really, really excited.
He looks lean.
He looks lean.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like he's never been fat.
No.
He's never had body fat. I think, again, everybody, talks about, the minutes played too. I think he played 38 minutes in their last game. 38.
Right, yeah, he had to, because Bahamas, they're a good team, but they don't have the depth
on the second night of a back-to-back too. By the way,
exactly.
Yeah,
that just shows you he's in great shape. And we all know the interview that happened earlier in the summer, and it feels like the world is against him. And maybe that's going to be a good thing for DA. I hope he finds peace and happiness in his life. He definitely seems disturbed at the perception around the league, around the world. I'm not sure. It felt very heavy in hearing him say that. But then you watch him on the court and you're like, okay, if that's going to light a fire, then
I hope so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he looks lean, but the other thing is he looks vocal in these clips that are being shared too. And I think that's really the thing. When you feel the way that he said he was feeling earlier in the summer, it's kind of easy to shrink into yourself and not necessarily embrace that vocal attitude. The fact that he was doing it so much over the past couple of weeks also got to build that chemistry with his teammate now and Eric Gordon. I feel really good about where he is potentially heading into the season. Not so much like I don't know how much we're going to see out of him in terms of like his offense changing or what his offensive role, his offensive role doesn't need to be enormous for this team to succeed. But if he can be vocal, if he can be a defensive leader, if he can be an enforcer,
rebounds.
Obviously those are
21,
rebounds.
I think.
Yeah, like 21 in the other game. So if he can embrace those roles, then we're all set. I want to get a little bit more of your perspective, though, on how you view, because we've had so much time to stew on the Bradley Beal acquisition now, Mike and I, and we've talked about it a bunch of times. But what you view his role night in and night out really being, because I think for Mike and I, the thing that's frustrated us is the lazy analysis of, well, there's only one ball that some people will kind of go towards, like if they don't see a natural Chris Paul type playmaker on a team, but they'll see three guys with the talent level, the shot creation ability of a Booker, Beal, and Durant, they'll just sort of naturally trend towards this analysis of, oh, there's only one ball, so it's going to be an issue. I'm of the mind, obviously, that you can never have too much shot creation of their caliber so long as each guy is an unselfish playmaker. And I think we're going to see that between the three of these guys. But how do you view it, and where do you think Beal's really going to fit?
Well, I think you just nailed it. I mean, I feel like when you talk about Book, KD, and Beal, they are all made out of the same cloth. They want to win. And you're dealing with so many egos and different personalities around the league. I mean, my goodness, I could start with James Harden and keep going on from there. But when you look at the three guys that the Suns have, not one of those three guys are going to be upset if the ball doesn't touch their hand in a certain possession and the Suns get a good look. I mean, they don't even need to make the shot. These guys are all about winning, and they're all about winning basketball, like the style, the culture. That's why they're together. And, sometimes when you look at a pairing or a trio, you're like, oh man, that's going to be tough. But you think about like Chris Bosh with Miami too, and how he sacrificed. And there's always going to have to be somebody that's going to sacrifice on a possession in a game. But Bradley Beal, to me, after what he's gone through in Washington, if the Suns beat Utah on a Wednesday night and he scores 8 points, he's going to be thrilled, after what he's been through, right, and what the goal is for those three players. So that's the least of my worries. I just think that all three of them are just built the same way from a mental standpoint. I mean, certainly from a confidence and skill level, but from where they are when it comes to winning basketball games, winning a championship, and doing it the right way. God, we've seen Book do it his whole career. I mean, he'll go for 50 and then he's fine if he scores 14 or if he has an off shooting night. That's the other thing. I mean, and now, in this day and age of guys, managing their minutes and load management, you can give Booker a day off and you still have KD and Beal out there. You can give Beal the day off and you still have KD and Book. What options that Frank Vogel has. And it's such a long season, and just pray. I pray that there's no injuries, no catastrophic injuries for any of the three, because if those three stay healthy with the makings of this bench and the culture, and I'm just, I have to admit, I didn't know enough about Frank Vogel, the person. I mean, I knew a little bit about him as a coach, but everything I'm hearing is just, he's incredibly grounded, down to earth, positive, upbeat, and I think he's going to be just the perfect head coach for this team. And again, just barring any sort of a major injury to one of those three players, I mean, yeah, this is about as excited as I've been.
And it's just so important that Devin Booker, as the sort of incumbent star, the leader of this team, if you will, he just embodies what you're talking about with the ability to sacrifice and the desire to win. And I think about a specific moment from last season. I think about it often when the Suns were playing the Minnesota Timberwolves and Devin Booker passed and assisted a shot and the Suns scored, and he turned and he talked trash to the Minnesota Timberwolves bench and got a tech. And then somebody tweeted out what he said. And the trash talk that he said to the Minnesota Timberwolves bench was, "We play team basketball. We share the ball." And he got a tech for it. And just the importance of your star player embodying that to the point of talking trash to a team that maybe didn't, at least at that time. But Tom, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'll let you go here. But with your time on the Suns, we have a lot of new Suns fans, I think. And then I think even more probably over the course of the next season will join. No, I don't even want to call it a bandwagon. I think there's a negative connotation to that. It's okay to join a team when they're good, when they're fun. But, looking back at Suns history, if you could tell a new Suns fan to look up highlights of any former player that maybe is a little underrated or under talked about when it comes to, like, obviously we know who Charles Barkley, Steve Nash, Amar'e Stoudemire are. Everyone knows to look up those highlights. But, with your time around the Suns, who's a player that comes to mind that you would want a new Suns fan to look up highlights of to see who they were for the Suns?
Paul Westphal.
That's awesome.
There you go.
It's not even close. I mean, Walter, obviously, but Paul Westphal was crazy athletic. And I actually produced a documentary on the Cinderella Suns, the 76 team that went to the finals. And I saw clips that I'd never seen before. And one of them was dunking on Tom Burleson, who was like a 7'3" center. But that and his spinning turnarounds. I mean, he was the guy that me and a bunch of my friends emulated growing up, kind of that spinning fadeaway, the left-handed shots. I mean, he was ambidextrous. Oh my God, I love Paul Westphal, and I miss him so much. And that's probably one of my most cherished memories is getting to know him after his playing career, when he became a coach in the league, the Suns head coach. And even when he was in Sacramento, when he was the Kings head coach, I would go into their locker room because he had great success against the Suns when he was coaching DeMarcus Cousins and the Sacramento Kings. I think he won like 90% of his games against the Suns. And I'd poke my head into the visitors' locker room and go, Westy, I don't want the Suns ever to lose, but if they are going to lose, I'm glad they lost to you. And so over the years, we just had this great friendship. But in terms of just on the court and fans appreciating Westy, and another guy who was multiple time first team all NBA, and to go into the Hall of Fame was it was so perfect. I was lucky enough to be in Springfield for that ceremony. But Westy's my guy.
Well, I expect everyone to be Googling him and watching the highlights if you've never seen them. I know I'm going to do that. Tom, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to talk to you. I know everyone knows where to watch you. This season, it'll be on a new channel, of course, but watch the pregame show, watch the halftime show, watch the postgame show. If you're calling the game, obviously everyone's going to watch the game, but if you're calling the game, I always look forward to those occasional times that you call the games during the year, Tom. But is there anything else that you want to tell people to check out before we let you go here?
No, other than then the fact that we're going to be doing all the preseason games. So that's something we haven't done in a long time. Sometimes we do one for charity or something, but no, we're going to be on the air for preseason game number 1, and we won't be off the air until after the first round of the playoffs in terms of local TV. But so I'm really jazzed for that, and training camp coming up, but to be able to do some of those preseason games, and the first one against the Detroit Pistons and Monty Williams.
I was about to say a funny choice there for the first preseason.
I know, for like a meaningless preseason game, the first preseason game is not as meaningless as it might have been.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tom. You're always great.
Nah, Mike and Sam, you guys do a great job. Thanks for having me.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.